Anaya Joy Holili, and we're going to be talking today about past lives. Why do we experience them? What do they mean? And how they're here to change our lives or help or understand so much more about us on a greater level. So it's a fascinating subject, and there's no way we could possibly cover it in a short hour, but we can give you some ideas and maybe help you recognize whether you're connecting with a past life in a particular situation or with a person or anything. So yeah, it's a wonderful, I love it. It's something that's been a part of my life for so very long. It's come naturally to me, and I've been very fortunate in that way. So yes, and welcome, Anae. What about you? Have you experienced that yourself?
Hello, everyone. Hi. You know, I have to say first off to Beth, my very first show, everyone, on Angel Heart Radio was with Beth, and we was discussing past lives. So here we have come full circle, right? It's awesome. Absolutely. I have had remember?
It.
I remember it so vividly, everyone. Let's just do our housekeeping first. Remember that Angel Heart Radio programs are not to be used to replace your legal, medical, or professional advice, nor your own sound judgment. Absolutely. I have had very vivid flashbacks into past life experiences because you explain it really well about what time really is, to Beth. We don't go back.
Yeah, I mean, time.
Yeah.
No, well, it feels like there is history on the planet, but at the same time, every past, present, and future are all one. So time is an energy. And we've all known, we've felt it since probably particularly 2012, that the energy has shifted, it's changed. And that in the Mayan calendar, that was the ending of a cycle. So everything's speeding up. So we know the days seem much shorter. Well, that's because the energy is quickening. Everything is quickening. And even the veils between us and different dimensions are getting closer. I guess the more you're open to that, you can feel more. So we can actually tap into our ancestors, our other lives, because it's an energy. We can travel anywhere, anytime. It doesn't matter, past, present, and future. So it's fascinating. And I've had so many experiences in my life, and like you can't make this up. Well, some people might, but when you're authentic and you experience these things, it's very powerful, and it has a powerful effect on your life and your understanding of the world. And it's meant to give you an understanding of yourself on a much deeper level and much broader level. We focus too much on just the humanness. It's much greater. We are much greater than that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's amazing. I started when I was quite young. I remember actually not quite at the time, but my first past life recognition was at 17 with this young man that came into a shop. I was working. I wanted to leave school, do my own thing, and I was only quite young, and I'd been out to lunch, and I came back in through the doorway and into the back room of this jeweler's, and there he was. And I literally felt my whole body go into shock. It stopped me in my tracks. And it wasn't until a number of years later that I understood and got the understanding. This young guy looked almost exactly like someone I was in love with and wanted to marry in a past life, but we couldn't. And it was a shock to see him. So children are very open to this sort of thing. So there's many instances of children understanding and knowing their past lives. So never dismiss what they're feeling. It's fascinating. And now, have you got any recollections like that, or that you can share or like?
Absolutely. I had this absolute terror of being in a fire, and it was so strong and so frightening. I mean, if I had a candle going, I couldn't just put it out. I had to pour water on it, had to put it in a saucepan, put a lid on it. I was really scared all the time that this fire was going to get away from me and I was going to be trapped and burned. Anyway, I went to see Brian Weiss at a Hay House event, and he was talking obviously about past life energies and experiences. And all of a sudden, I was just taken to another place. And I was a young woman, and I was ready for bed. I was wearing a long nightgown and my hair was in a plait. It was really long. And we were rushing down to the cellar because there was looting and rampaging going on, and we were hoping to hide in the cellar. But of course, the house was set on fire and we were caught in the cellar. And you could see the smoke starting to come under the the door, and it was just so terrifying. But from that moment on, I've lost that fear, because I
Yes.
understand now that that was something that, yes, it was an experience, but it was an experience that's finished. It doesn't have any bearing on me and my experiences today. So that was like being set free, really.
Yes. Yes. It does liberate you. There are some, I actually have a fear and a fascination of tsunamis. And that still stayed there. I understand what happened and where it was and all those sorts of things. But yeah, that still lingers a little bit. I'm still very aware of these things. So sometimes, they may stay for a reason. It's just interesting. I'm fascinated by them, but they, no one likes to be in a tsunami, but I'd like to look at the power of it. It's very strange at times, but what's interesting that you're in the experiences I've had where you have had no idea you're coming into something, that your body knows what's going on. And there's a part of you, as your body starts to react to something, but the part of you doesn't know or understand what it's doing. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. This was when I was in Sedona, and I was part of speaking at a conference many years ago, and we were going to Cathedral Rock to do a shamanic journey. And of course, there's many vortexes in Sedona, very powerful vortexes there. And even on the walk to the rock, I could smell the air was very sweet. No one else could smell it. So it was the most beautiful smell. And I realized later on that the earth, the scent of the earth was very different. The energy was very different where I was. And I was going back into this event or recognition, and got up on the rock and was just looking around, getting my bag. We were all supposedly to lay around in a circle on a rock. And I turned around to look at the main part of Cathedral Rock, and then my body just went, get on your knees now. And I didn't know what was happening. So I had to get down on my knees, and I'm thinking, everyone thinks I'm going to be a bit strange here. And so I sort of was on one knee pretending to look in my bag, when it was like, bow your head, this is a sacred place. And I realized that very long time ago, I'd lived there. And this is a powerful vortex where the star people used to come in, and they lived with it. We all lived together, and it was such a beautiful existence. It was very peaceful and loving and very respectful, and there was so much love and harmony there. It was overwhelming. I just wanted to be there again. But my body knew, but I was looking as my body was doing this. I didn't know what was happening. So I don't know if you've ever experienced anything like that, Anae, with your past lives, but that's happened a number of times for me. So it's quite powerful. There's a part of you that knows all of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's happened to you, you've experienced.
And sometimes it comes through as like a dream. We think we're having a dream, or that feeling of deja vu. There are so many different ways that it can come through. And I'd be really interested to know from everyone else who's joining us, what have you had past life experiences? Is there anything you want to share? Do you have any questions? Because it's very easy then when we come back into, the now, it's very easy, isn't it, to just say, well, it was a dream, or I was just daydreaming, or discounted in some way. especially if it's been something frightening, which was in my case being caught. But once I experienced that, it was over. And it's about not getting caught up in it.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
it's the sense of time and place. It's not even just it's not a thought process, is it? Not, oh, I think I
No.
was there and I think this happened to me. Can feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you can't imagine. The feeling is the real thing. I used to get a lot in my dreams of connecting with past lives, other lives. And yeah, it was always fascinating. You've got to understand that, like, we do a lot in our dreams, and it's just another reality. This is one, and that's another real reality. We do process a lot in our dreams, but there's a different quality when you know this feels so real, and it lingers on, and it has a deep impact on you. And yeah, it is fascinating. And the one point I wanted to make, yeah, I mean, it can bring up fears, and that's okay. But as you say, it's not to get caught up with it. And I've seen people get so caught up and living then instead of now. It's getting the understanding of what happened and what you're here to work with. You'll only usually get what you need to work on
Yeah.
in those memories, and that's important. So I have seen people sometimes, unfortunately, even compromise some very good relationships to follow they've met someone and they've felt that strong attraction, that knowing that person. And there is a soul love, and that's real, but it's not meant, you're not always meant to follow that and leave the person you're with for this other person. We love so many. Love doesn't die because the physical body goes. We love so many people. Can you imagine how many lives we have and how many people we love in all sorts of ways? It's love that connects everything. So if you just, yeah, I've seen that happen, and it's interesting to watch, but yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in it and just focus on it. But it's always like, what is it showing me? What is it telling me about myself and that greater self? And it's nothing to give yourself a hard time about. It's learning. We've all been the victim and the, the what's the word?
Perpetrator.
Bad guy,
Yeah.
perpetrator. We've been rich, we've been poor, we've had loss, we've had, great wealth. We've had every description, and it's for the soul to understand and grow and learn. And there's about strength. Like at the moment, I mean, one of the big lessons on a mass scale is learning that emotional resilience, that inner strength to be here, to hold the light. That's a huge one for every single person, plus all the other things that we're feeling as well. So it makes a difference. You will, can live thousands of lives. The soul is such a massive energy, and we're just this little spark. So it's not linear time. It's like I guess, like a cycle, a spiral that we're on. What an old saying is, like, when I leave this mortal coil. Do you remember people
Yep.
saying that? And
Absolutely.
that's true. It's like a coil.
Yep. That's
So
exactly
yeah.
right. It's that continuation of energy, because energy, as we know, it's not stagnant. It doesn't just stop. It doesn't just stay contained or in one experience or expression. So we are part of this amazing and immense energy that is constantly shifting and growing and changing and expanding and contracting sometimes. I think it's just so beautiful that to stop and think about it, really, like, explore, what does it mean that I'm here right now, where I am, living the life that I'm living, because it's not happenstance. We didn't just accidentally end up, well, I don't believe anyway, that we accidentally ended up here somehow. Welcome, Anne. Anne's watching along with us.
Oh,
Anne,
yeah.
do ask any questions that you might have. And I
Yes,
feel
love questions.
that is, yeah, we do love questions or experiences. And I just feel like
Mm,
there is this major blessing going on that's so easy to overlook in our everyday lives. The fact that we're here, the fact
yes,
that we have so
exactly.
many opportunities, even when we can't see them, they're there.
Yeah, they are there. And everyday experiences, the, the other lives are interacting with us non-stop. I mean, it would happen probably when the soul comes into a baby in the womb. That's, you know, and probably prior to that, there's all that knowledge beforehand, but things will start, you'll remember things if you were taken back and can go in. And people, you know, you can do that under regression or whatever. You can remember memories and things going on. So it's a constant, it never stops. You know, our soul would have discussed what we were going to do this life and then come into the body. And it never ends. And everyday occurrences, likes, dislikes of things or people, your nature, everything. You're learning often about the opposite of, or another aspect that you hadn't seen in yourself. Like over the years, I mean, I've been doing the energy work for 24 years, and often for myself and other people, it may come up during an energy session because under having energy work and hypnosis are similar. You're in an altered state. And that actually goes back to, they recorded this, seeing drawings even in ancient Egypt of them using possibly hypnosis to help people. So I've lost my track of thought then, sorry. um,
That's easy to do.
Damn. Yeah, as you come in, and I can give you some example, or one example particularly. This man I did some hypnotherapy on quite a few years ago. Lovely guy, but he didn't feel like he wanted to be responsible for everything, or he shied away from responsibility, and you know it wasn't helping his relationship, and he knew it, but he didn't understand why. And so we did some regression on him. And what was interesting, he'd been a leader, I think it was a Native American tribe. He was one of the head guys and held a lot of responsibility and really took that seriously and looked after everyone as best as he could and guided people. Then something happened, I can't quite remember what. And, you know, there was a bit of a catastrophe. And he blamed himself so much that this life, on some level, he just thought, I'm not going there again. I don't want that responsibility again, or I'm choosing to experience the opposite, to understand all these aspects of myself more clearly. So when he came out of that, he got a greater understanding of himself and who he is, stopped judging himself. And yeah, it helped him to understand he can integrate it, and it's okay to be responsible for some things and not others. He didn't have to go to those extremes. So it's fascinating, again, how you learn about who you are on that
Mm-hmm.
level. So think about the countless experiences we have to go through to get an amazing understanding of even part of who we are. And that's just here on planet Earth. I mean, I believe that we go into the universe and as other life forms, so they'd be different experiences again. We only believe that these are the one experiences, but they're not. The soul is just an endless being. So yeah, it's that was an interesting exercise. And there was another one, a lady who we did a couple of past lives, and one particularly, she had numerous lives where she had been quite wealthy as a male, quite wealthy, had a good life, and did all these wonderful things. But, oh no, she was a woman, sorry. And then she came in as this one particular life, she came in as a man. And he was this beautiful being who just radiated love and kindness and generosity. And that life made the biggest impact on her because she realized what was important about success, what success really was. And it really changed her life in that way because she realized she could do anything she wanted to. So that was a really wonderful example of getting your values right, really teaching about values and, again, what is important to us all. And then another one, I'll give you one more. I've got a few. They're fascinating. This young guy, I could keep going. This young guy, he was a young man in old Europe, and his father happened to be, I don't know, the ruler or king of a particular place. And he was a good man, the king, and he loved his son. They had a very good relationship. But this young man was very, very active, extremely active. And so, for some reason, they had a lion. Well, he thought he wanted to battle this lion and conquer this lion, but of course the lion won and he was killed. And of course the father was very devastated by that. But he realized he had no regrets even in dying. He had no regrets. He just wanted to have the experiences. So it can be like, you can be quite comfortable with what happens to you, even if it ends in death. You know, it's just what you gain out of it. And in this life, it was a lady, her partner was her father in that life. So they were together again. So they got to, you know, experience that love together again, which was lovely. Yeah. So
And that's the thing, isn't it? It's about
just
different experiences coming through. You know, because a person's immediate reaction might be, ugh, you know, how could my father be my partner? Well, it's not your father, it's the energy of the person, the soul connection,
right.
experiencing different relationships. So when we begin to unpack that, we can see that as we experience different forms or types of relationships with people who we have very significant relationships with, we're really gaining so much, really a wealth of understanding and knowledge about that person and ourselves in relationship. Because that's why we're here, right? We're here to have relationships and learn and experience emotion. So having that is so expansive.
It is.
So to take that on board and understand that, yeah, I mean, Brian Weiss spoke about this, so fabulously in his book, Many Lives, Many Masters. And if you haven't read that, everyone, and you're interested in past lives, I cannot recommend it highly enough. It's really wonderful. And then again, with the follow-up book, Only Love is Real, where he focuses on two people
That's
who
right. Yes.
were part of the first book. Of course, everyone has a different name. And what happened from then on in. It was just so amazing to read. And, you know, Brian accidentally came across this idea of past life experiences, undergoing hypnotherapy with a patient who had been coming for such a long time and was working so hard, but not getting anywhere, still having the same issues, unresolved issues. And so he simply said in a session one day, go back to where the pain began. And boom.
Yes. And
it all happened.
it happens. Yeah, that's my favorite part of doing hypnotherapy is past life regression because it's connecting with the soul. And the soul is where we're wanting to be on that strong connection, and it will teach you about your soul, that greater part of you. And yeah, his books are great. I've got a couple, or one particularly to show you as well, which is fascinating. I'll bring it up now. This lady, I don't know if you can see it.
Bring it over in front of you a little bit. There you go.
There. It's called The Search for Om Seti. Sorry.
Yep. Sorry. Go ahead.
The Search for Om Seti by Jonathan Cott. And it's about this lady, Dorothy Eady, in 1907. She was about 3. And she fell down a set of stairs. And, you know, family was horrified and they carried her up and they called a doctor and he pronounced her dead. And they were, you know, it's just totally devastated. Well, anyway, probably by the time the doctor they went to get the other parts of the family to bring them up. Well, apparently she just ended up sitting up and going, I'm okay. She was fine somehow. We don't know how. And he was horrified because he knew she had died, but she'd obviously come back. And from then on, she would sit, she'd go, who are you? Where's my parents? She knew these people were there, but she didn't recognize them as her parents. And from different, as she was growing up, her mother would find her at the dining room table going, where are my parents? Why can't you take me to my parents? I'm so depressed. She was really, it kept going and going and going. And so she was very drawn to Egypt, and she could learn all these different languages. She knew how to do hieroglyphics. It all came naturally to her. And so in the end, she moved to Egypt as a young woman and stayed there. And she actually helped in the end find a lot of major archaeological finds in Egypt because of the memories that she had. It was so accurate, and so many things she was able to prove that, she lived there for many years and died, but she helped the archaeologists so often with things to help them. So it was an amazing story. It's written in a bit of a story form, but it was her memory of what her life there, and it's a love story between Seti and her. And it's an amazing, interesting story. So there's many, and another one is Initiation. Elizabeth, I don't know how to pronounce this. Heish, I think, German lady. It's a classic. She wrote about being an initiate back in Egypt and her memory of that, plus bringing in other lives as well. It's a fascinating story. If anyone's into that sort of thing and like to read something a bit different, and there's actually a lot of, even though Elizabeth's story is a story, there's a lot of information in there as well that may trigger memories. And that's another thing when you're reading different books or whatever, things you might read just stand out to you. It triggers something inside of you, and it helps you understand your innate gifts and abilities. And you may even be born with talents that you have no understanding of how you have them. Like children, being able to play piano or learn, numerous languages. What else? Like there's so many gifts and talents. Writing,
artwork. I was
art.
watching.
Yeah,
I was watching Portrait Artist of the Year, and one of the contestants on it had been painting since they were 1. They just picked up a paintbrush and started painting. So it just comes through. It's because it's a part of us. It isn't a thing that we have. It's part of our energy, isn't it? Welcome, Peter.
Yes.
Welcome, Denise. Welcome, Darlene. Everyone who's watching, welcome. Pam, welcome. Anyone who has questions, please ask or share any experiences you'd like to.
Yes.
So when we're looking at past lives, let's really unpack it, Beth. Let's really pick it apart and have a good look at how past lives can affect different people, in the sense that, as I shared earlier, if you guys weren't here, I used to have an absolute morbid fear of being burnt alive until I had a spontaneous past life regression. And then when I realized I had that, I knew where it came from, I was set free from it. Has anybody else had anything like that? Renee, welcome. So, and again, coming back to the point that past lives time is not linear. So we don't have a life and then die and then get born again and come back, even though it feels like that to us. Everything is happening concurrently because it's an energy and there's a flow of energy. And so we're having all these experiences that come together for us in our memory and in our feelings in this current life experience that we're having. It's just so beautiful, Beth, to really think about that.
It is. And it's more like not me, it's a we. It's we. When you say we, It's fascinating because actually I've got something to share about that even. My mother died like 20 years ago, and my father-in-law, uh, ex-father-in-law, had died like 10 years prior to that. We got on very well. And when I was down at my mother's place one night, in a dream, he actually came to me in the dream. Like, at first I started seeing all these beautiful colors, and then he appeared to me as a younger man, which I'd never met him as a younger man. And he was talking, we were chatting, and I said, "Oh, how are you? It's so good to see you." He said, "Yeah, it's wonderful to see you." And I said, "Oh, miss you." And I said, "How is it there for you?" And he said, "Oh, it's really been really good for me here." And he said, this is when the conversation, I don't remember all of it. He said, blah, blah, blah. And yes, I've got a couple of political bodies down there. And then that's all I remember. And then woke up in the morning and went, wow, okay. And I questioned that and went, wow, how many aspects of the soul can be on the planet at one time? So it's more than one. So it is possible that more than one person can have the same memory of being like in another life, we'll say, just to keep it simple. So there can be more than three. It's probably rare, but it's possible. So that even in itself is quite fascinating. So in our understanding of how things work, we still really don't know exactly how it all works, but it shows you that we're also, many of us are connected even more strongly. And imagine if those three people, say there were three, met up, how would that feel? Imagine the
Would
connection
you
with that would be
recognize each
amazing.
other? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
Exactly.
I think
we do
it's,
tend to recognize.
yeah, because I really do feel that this is something that can't be quantified. We don't know how many, and for me, it's not how many, but it's the excitement of understanding that, because we often think the soul is in the body, right? And it's not. Aspects of us are attached to this body, but we don't live inside our body, and our soul is so vast and magnificent, as are we in truth. So having these wonderful, it's kind of like adventures, it's like going on a safari, to think about these things, right? Because it's so exciting to wonder, and just the wondering, just the being open to it, things will then come in. So it'd be really interesting for everyone listening and watching, whether it's now or later on the live stream replay, or maybe you're listening on the podcast. What comes up for you about?
And I want to say,
experiences?
If someone wants to contact and ask more in depth about past lives, they can get me on my website. You can contact me there also if they want, and I'll put that at the end. Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, so what's your website, Beth?
Thrivetherapies.com.au.
Okay. Thrivetherapies.com.au. And of course,
yep.
Love at Angel Heart Radio will get any of our hosts as well, including to Beth. Yep. So it's how do we go in deeper? How do we, and so not just have a surface conversation, isn't it? So this is why we love your questions, because it helps us to really understand what it is that you want to know, what it is that you're interested in. Maybe you don't even believe in this, and that's okay as well. That's what starts the ball rolling. That's what gets a really cool conversation going.
Yes.
Yeah, so
you don't actually have to believe in past lives. I had a friend years ago who was a good astrologer, and she understood the concept. She could see why it made sense, but in her mind, it wasn't her thing. And she could tell by looking in her natal chart why she didn't need to go into past lives or other lives for whatever reason. So you don't have to. I guess it's just taking responsibility and going deeper within yourself anyway. And the main thing is, yes, you need to take the time to explore and connect with your higher self, and then move to the soul if you want to do it that way, will help you. But it is a much deeper feeling and connection, and in your intent of what you want to understand about yourself. It's not a surface thing, and not everyone's at that stage, and that's okay. But the rewards. It's not always easy either. Some of the experiences, especially when you're dealing in relationships or family groups, that can be very interesting. You know, you've got the family dynamics and you're working with karmic influences. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people who make, you know, say karma's, you know, it's really like you do something wrong and then you pay for it. That is not what karma is about. And it's too simplistic, and it's certainly not how it works. A lot of it comes back to you. Well, pretty well everything comes back to you, about why these things were set up and what you're here to learn. And even from your so-called enemies, you know, people you don't like, they're on a soul level, they love you and you love each other. You can't, the being in front of you may not be acting that way, and you may not be acting that way, but you know, I've had firsthand of that as well, understanding that. And it was the feeling of knowing that love is quite a revelation. And it certainly makes you question your actions and your belief systems. And that's what we need to shake up, is just open your minds to so much more, because there is an infinite knowledge out there and wisdom that we're still tapping into. And probably when we pass over, it will still keep going, and it will keep going forever and ever until we're all back in the source, totally connected. So yeah, it is a never-ending journey, as you say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're all like actors in a play.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah.
And the dramas we make up, and it's like days of our lives.
That's right. They are very real to us. I heard a podcast once, and it was so fascinating. I'm actually realizing now I'm going to reach out to the author. I can't quite recall what the book was called or the author's name, but it'll come. And he was writing about an major experience in his life, where his son, very young, I think he was only about 18, was murdered. And obviously that was an extremely devastating experience for he and his wife. And he was a scientific man, I think, from memory. And so he was very shocked when his son reached out to him from beyond.
Yeah.
And helped him to understand the nature of the experience, and how the really important thing now was to move on from the devastation and to understand that there were many more connections between the son and the people who had carried out the crime in this life, in past life experiences where the tables had actually been turned. And so he felt very in balance with it all.
Yes.
And because now here we are, we have a young man at 18 who has left this life very suddenly and very violently. And this wisdom of the soul comes through and connects with his dad. And that really made me think so much, to Beth, about transgressions and the nature of karma, the nature of life. And while we certainly could never make light of a situation like that or condone an action that caused harm to another person, there was this, Denise is here. Hello, Denise. There were these layers. It's seeing all of these layers, isn't it? And being open to the layers, being open to what that actually means when we get out of the thought experience and the emotional experience about it. And that is massive, obviously, especially for something like that. I mean, nobody ever wants to experience anything like that. So, okay, God, please send that through, and I'm going to reach out to that author.
Yeah.
Yes,
that sounds great. It is, and it's not always easy to see it in that way when it's happening, but it is true. Nothing happens by accident, and that's not all. Certainly accepting that is difficult, but there's always those layers, and always there's, it goes off in different directions. And it's amazing that we can't even fathom how it's worked out, how it all comes together, but it does. And yeah, I've known of a friend who had to go to jury duty when a father shot his son. And what happened, the son started, he was dead, and the son started coming to my friend and he was really in distress, wanting to be able to communicate with his father. And in the end, my friend sort of had to say to the judge, look, I can't do this because this is what's happening. And so she was able to not do it. So she allowed this young man to come through and give a letter to his father. And it helped him, because he knew there were other circumstances. It wasn't just about the son shot the father. There was other things in play that no one else would know. And so he would have gone to jail, obviously, but it would have given him some peace to the situation and more self-forgiveness, and to try and deal with the whole situation. So we don't know. It can be very complicated, and just trying to work it out. But all you can do is be in your own integrity and be honest and authentic in different situations, and ask for guidance as well, because sometimes you're in that hole and you just don't know how to go about it. And at times, I've felt like I can't do this. I've wanted to know, where did I sign this contract? I don't think this is right. I'm over this, please. I can't. You think I can do this, but I cannot do this. I can't deal with it. I'm not strong enough. But after I had that little tantrum, it was like they were probably laughing at me, going, yes, you can. And then the shift came after that. Then I went, oh, yeah, I was okay. So sometimes we don't think we're strong enough to go through things.
And then we do.
Yeah, so
we somehow find our way through somehow. And sometimes
yes,
it's, that a compassionate person will smile at us on a very tough day, or it can be something so incredibly seemingly insignificant that then brings through strength for us and helps us remember that there is compassion in the world, that there is something beyond what we're experiencing, and there's no time limit on it. It isn't, well, we'll have this experience and by this date or these many weeks or months, I'm going to be okay. It is a sacred journey. It is our journey. It's the journey that only we can take in our own way, and pushing ourselves to not do it that way creates more havoc for us, doesn't it? It doesn't allow us the experience with the depth that we may need to experience it.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, one of the things that for myself and what I've, working with people over the years, there's a lot of self-forgiveness needed when you boil it all down, and then you can forgive other people, because in reality, there is no right or wrong, and it is what it is, and there's a reason things happen. So yeah, forgiveness is a big part of past lives, other lives, in terms of self-acceptance, all those things. There's things that people have gone through and find it hard to forgive themselves or accept that they've done something or whatever. But yeah, that's a big part. And I find when that happens, things massively shift after that. And it's like a huge release, and release not only in the emotions, the mind, but the body, because the body will hold obviously everything in the cells, the memories, the triggers, the emotions. But interestingly, there can be wounds and marks on the body from other lives where you may have died or had accidents. It's fascinating. And releasing the energetic hold on those wounds will certainly make a difference to your life as well. Yeah, it's been fascinating watching other people with their journeys as well, with other lives. Yeah, it's fascinating. But the forgiveness is, I found, a massive thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's beyond anything I think we can really describe, because when we can't be
Yeah.
in forgiveness, and that can be a really really tough call, as we know, but when we can't be in forgiveness, it means that we are in a lot of other experiences. So there's judgment, there's criticism, there's could be regret, obviously blame. So many different emotions are at play, resentment, and all of those things we're not going to be easy with that energy. We can't have a feeling of centeredness or some sort of, pleasure in being in the moment in our own lives, can we? And it takes time. I've been in situations where, I've really struggled with this majorly. Yet there is a way, and there isn't a prescription. There are tools.
No.
Tools are very important, I believe. And that self-forgiveness is a massive one. It's a huge tool, and it's a big learning curve, because through that we will come to much more feeling the feelings of self-love, self-worth, self-care, self-esteem. And Louise Hay is an amazing teacher about this. There's a huge body of work she's left on the planet for us all, amongst others. I was listening to Mike Dooley over the weekend. Wow. I just kept getting these boom, boom, boom light bulb moments, stuff I already knew, but somehow in the context, he was bringing it in, and the way he was sharing really connected with me. So there you go. It comes in.
It does. And like the self-forgiveness, people get sort of hooked on what happened this life, but what happens, this life is about triggers, and it's only for other lives that there are similar circumstances that may have happened in other lives. So if you can forgive yourself now, or forgive other people too also, because if you can take it back and back and back, there had to be something that started in the end for you. We can set up circumstances where we've put ourselves in a really hard, horrible situation. You go, why would I do that to myself? I mean, there can be many reasons, there can be many lessons, but one of them may be because you're giving yourself a hard time and you don't think you deserve it. So you've created this life, and it could go back quite a number of lifetimes. And so this is the important thing, is seeing things on a much bigger picture than you have in the past will help free you from a lot of that energy that you want to let go of, that heaviness and that recrimination or whatever that may be holding you back and holding your energy from expanding, actually, because we can get so caught up and so tight and so self-protective that we don't expand, and we're meant to be expanding more and more all the time. And especially at this time, with the way the change is so rapid, we need to be expanding more so we can live and create a different society than what's happening. So nothing that is happening now is an accident either. So it's about choice, and looking at the choices we may have made in the past and other lives as well. So it's really getting the lesson. There's a lot of innate wisdom people have within themselves. They don't realize it. They've had these other lives where they've been in positions and they've gained that, and it's within them, but it's just getting them to recognize that is still there, and it just has to be nurtured. So focusing on your strengths is an important part of this, and what gifts you've got to help humanity and obviously yourself. So no questions yet?
No, very quiet there today.
Well, it's quiet.
Yes, it is quiet today. So I think one of the things that's really coming out for me at the moment is it's really I'm really feeling this really strong connection of how if we don't have self-forgiveness, it actually, it's like it's like a shackle when we have guilt and
Yes.
blame for
Yes.
ourselves. And, you know, you think about shackles, you can only shuffle along, can't take great free strides because you're shackled. So, and that's something that only we can choose. And it is a very big challenge sometimes, because we believe we've done something so terrible, or we were so whatever, that this happened, that happened. It's all about self-forgiveness. Everything is about self-forgiveness. If we cannot forgive ourselves, we will never be able to truly forgive another. So there will always be blame, shame, and recrimination. And those energies are very powerful in their energies that have such a low vibration. It keeps us really feeling stuck. And, as I said before, hey, there's no time limit on how long it's going to take us to get this and work through it and make some different choices, make decisions about the choices, because we are responsible for absolutely everything that happens in our lives. And that can be a bitter pill to swallow, particularly if some pretty rough stuff's going on. But the great news about that is I am responsible for my happiness. And so equally, I am responsible for any unhappiness I have, which may sound very difficult. But when you look at that and you realize, wow, if I'm responsible for that and I've chosen that, I can choose something else, right? I
Yes,
can choose
exactly. Yeah.
something else. I can choose another way. I might not know how to choose that, but I have that power. So small baby steps might be the way forward. That is absolutely beautiful and
Totally.
powerful, and it's life-changing.
In reality, we often think the universe is doing something to us because whatever the circumstances we don't like, understandably. But there's only just us and what we're creating. So that in itself, if you get that realization, that can change a lot of things. It doesn't mean life is absolutely perfect, because you're still here learning things, but we when you realize that I'm creating whatever happens in your life, it's more about how do you feel about it? How is it making you feel about you? That's going to vibrate out and create more of, whether you're good, positive or negative or whatever you like to call it. It's what it means to you and how that feels deep within yourself. And if that's in alignment with your values, your higher self, in that sense, then things will flow in more harmony as much as possible. So it's really realizing that the universe isn't out to get you, even though I feel
That's
that way
right.
sometimes.
Exactly right,
Yeah.
because we're not
And
victims. We feel like we're victims, but
no,
that's the
yeah,
truth, because we can choose.
you-
And again, disclaimer again, everyone, I understand there's some really heavy duty stuff going on, really
yeah,
tough stuff in people's lives. I'm not minimizing that at all,
no,
but we have the power of choice. It is the greatest power we have ever been bestowed with here in this plane of existence that we call life. Use your power of choice to choose wonderful things for you, even if it's just a moment of choosing to just breathe in the sweetness of a flower, right? Because once we start getting into the habit of that, it's amazing, absolutely amazing what will grow. And I know that firsthand. Yeah. From when my life was
of course.
completely
I
in
mean,
order, yeah, to now, it's just
you can be in the dire. Yeah, sorry. You can be in dire situations, and you may not be able to see that there may not be much way you can move. But I guess that may be a lesson this life in testing your will, your trust, and your faith, or in yourself even. There are a myriad of lessons in whatever area of life, and multiple at the time. So no, I would never discount. There are some very challenging situations as individuals, as groups, as of continents, as you know, all sorts. It goes across the board. So as nations, yeah, and of course as a collective planet Earth. So the more you can look higher and ask for that higher guidance. We're all equal. We all are able to receive this. So that's in itself, you never devalue yourself just because someone seems to be going through less than you. It's just different. We're all got different lessons. So don't compare, and just keeping the faith is probably the biggest thing, and your trust in yourself to move through whatever you need to move through. So yes, and I can't believe that we're nearly at the end of the show. I feel like we've got
Done.
like it's
Done.
1 o'clock. So and we've only, you know, just touched the tip of the iceberg with this. And of course then there's soulmates, and that's another whole show again. And the lessons in that. So well, it's been great, Annette, and I hope people have gained something out of this today. And it's been great being here with you today. So look forward to the next fortnight, next Monday fortnight, and we'll see everybody then. So thank you. Thanks, Annette, for being here, and thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Say
Take
goodbye.
good care. Bye.
Bye for now. Bye.